when people are dealing with mental constraints, or when people have issues that they can't articulate, and they haven't got the outlet that they need, it's almost like a pressure cooker. It's sitting within that person, and then it explodes at times, and people judge.
Hello and welcome back to the Go Encourage podcast. My name is Rix. Today in the studio, I have my good friend Vivek Behl joining us, unpacking some of his life experiences around courage. Before we get there, can I just quickly remind you to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and help this channel grow. So I'm in the studio today with my good friend Vivek Behl. Hey Viv, how are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really excited that people get to know who you are and that we get to unpack a little bit about courage today.
Brilliant. Really excited to be here, and thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. So it seems to be a bit of a tradition on this podcast to ask people what their name means. So do you know what your name means?
So it's pronounced Vivek in Sanskrit, and it actually means wisdom. Nice. It's a judge as well, according to some findings, and it's also empowerment in terms of fulfillment in life. So it's quite a weird concept, but yeah, it rings familiarity with me. So it's quite good.
That's powerful, man.
Yeah.
What a name.
Yeah. I was when my granddad actually named me, and when I asked when I was quite young what it meant a lot to me. So yeah, really cool.
Do you feel like knowing that from a young age, it made you aspire to want to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Embody those words.
You know what? I think subconsciously, yeah. I totally agree with that. I think when anybody at a young age finds out what their name means, they generally want to kind of behave and go down that route effectively. So I think, for me, it was definitely the case. I did kind of think, I'm going to try and be wise. I may not be, but I tried.
Nice. I like it. So can you tell us a little bit about where you're from, where you grew up, family?
So I grew up in this really posh town in West London called Hounslow.
Hounslow.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great place, and there's a little village called Heston.
Right.
I grew up over there. I actually was born in my grandparents' house, and then I moved to a street very close by, so very close to the airport. I think it was because when my parents landed in the UK, they were just thought when we have to leave or we get kicked out, there's the airport's just down the road, and we don't have to go too far. I grew up over in Hounslow. A great place. I met some fantastic people, had a really diverse kind of upbringing with lots of different characters. So great place.
Amazing. And family, big family, small family?
Huge family. Right. So my nuclear family at that time was 4 of us. That was my mum, dad, my brother and I. But a really vast family on top of that. So my dad is one of 4 siblings, 9 grandchildren, and my grandparents as well. And we were all at my grandparents' house all the time, and it was really fun. Our family's really diverse. It's grown exponentially since, obviously, with marriages and kids and so on and so forth. And I think it's close to like 40 odd people now, if I can remember rightly, just on my dad's side. And then my mum's side, she's one of 9. And she's one of the youngest. So I have a lot of cousins who are a lot older than me, and some of them do live in the UK, but majority of them live in India.
Wow. And would you say that you're quite a tight-knit family in each other's lives, things like that?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think sometimes unhealthily so. But yeah, no, we are. We know a lot about each other. We're not just family, we're friends. We socialize together, we hang out together. It's a great way of growing up. We were all very different, which is also an accolade in its own kind of way. And we all just had our own kind of hearts going in different directions. So it's great.
Sure.
Yeah.
Amazing. Cool. Wow. And the background is India, is that right? Or?
Yeah, so a bit diverse actually. So my granddad was from a village or a city called Rawalpindi, which is now part of Pakistan.
Okay.
And it was before the kind of partition took place. He migrated then to Punjab, which is now part of India as well. I mean, always has been part of India, but moved to Punjab. And then thereafter, he then moved his family to his daughter and his wife actually to Dar es Salaam in Tanzania.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so East Africa. They lived there. My dad was born there with his two younger sisters as well, and then eventually they moved across when the whole Idi Amin thing happened in Uganda. There was a bit of fear going on with lots of people. They decided that they would move, and they came to the UK and they were able to settle down. Late 60s, early 70s type kind of scenario. Came down, settled in, and that was it. And then I was born in the 70s, and lots of other cousins and family members.
Nice, cool. Yeah. Wow. And in terms of your sort of family unit, you're married?
I am, yeah. So I am married to a lady called Rika. She's from Cardiff in Wales, and I have two beautiful children. They are twin girls. Their names are Jessica and Olivia, pronounced Olivia or Jessica in the Western world. But yeah, lovely I They are almost 8 years old. They'll be 8 in Feb. And
love being a dad.
It's the best. I think it was one of the best gift I think somebody could have. And I think the minute they were born until and continuing to go on, it's just been an amazing journey. I think you have different elements of being a father at different points in time, as you probably know as well. And the fact is that, girls are amazing. They're fantastic. They're daddy's girls. I'm the fun one, apparently. Apparently. But we have a lot of fun together, and it's just, they're just brilliant.
I think in Indian culture as well, there's a stigma or a stereotype that, you want to have a boy. And I've got a few friends at the moment who, are either pregnant or, just recently had a child, and they were like, I really want it to be, I'm talking to the men here. I really want it to be a boy. I'm like, mate, you have no idea the connection that a daughter has with a dad. Like it surpasses anything. It's incredible. Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the best feelings. I think, I remember being asked by my wife, so what do you prefer? And I said, I'm going to have 2 girls. We found out into the pregnancy that we were going to have twins.
Wow.
And then, we didn't find out the gender. So we decided against finding out. And then, I was like, I'm pretty certain it's going to be 2 girls. That's what I want. But hey, as long as babies are healthy, that's the main thing.
Yeah, of course.
And then 2 girls arrived, and I was just like, ecstatic beyond belief. And it's not changed since.
Yeah, amazing. I can testify to that as well in terms of daughters. They just, there's just a thing. Yeah. Sons and mothers, daughters and dads, it's just a thing, which is really special. So if you rewind back to when you were, say, their age, or a little bit older, was there an aspiration that you had or an ambition in what you wanted to do when you grew up?
So weirdly no. It was every week was different. And I think quite often as adults, we go back and maybe recollect that we might wanted to do something. I mean, there's that whole Prudential advert, I want to be a tree or whatever it was, and all sorts of different aspects there. I think for me personally, I didn't have a career goal in mind, if I'm honest. I think for me, it was just like, hey, each day was take it as it comes. You've got your interests. Unfortunately for me as a child, I was bullied. So I had quite a lot of different angles to kind of compete with on a daily basis. I wouldn't necessarily say I didn't have time to think about what I wanted to be, but I think I spent most of my time trying to figure out what the next day was going to be like and see how I would survive. I don't know if that sounds like the right way of saying it. I mean, survival is one thing, but it was about emotional survival. It was going in and going, hey, what's going to be today? What do I have to deal with now? And it was a regular basis. It was like that from primary school up until about the middle of my secondary school time. And then after that, I think I just came into my own. I was always the person I am today, if I'm completely honest. And I just had a lot more confidence. I started taking stuff like taekwondo up, doing extracurricular activities outside of school, became a little bit more sporty, and that changed me, I think, quite a bit. And I became a lot more sociable on the back of that. But I think at a certain age, when I was a little bit older, I think there was an inkling of me wanting to go into law. Yeah, weirdly so. But at that time, I was convinced that you can't be a lawyer because it is very racist to be a lawyer in this country. We won't go far. I was told by parents and uncles and aunts and so on. However, I chose a different career path.
So, the warning there was someone of your background, color, culture wouldn't progress so far in that career?
I think there was a perception of that, and evidently that's not the case.
Sure.
There's many successful lawyers that have come out from our age group and older, in fact, and younger. I think it's just people at that time, and it was just the way it was. But,
and I think it's not a blame thing. It's just having a look at what is presented to you and how you respond to that at the time.
And I completely agree. I think it's anything that's given to you at any given point in time with the knowledge you have. You make a decision. Everything's choices, right? And you make a choice at that given point in time. No regrets. Yeah. Cool.
You touched on bullying then. I hope you don't mind me having a look at that. And would you say, the taekwondo and sort of self-development at that young age was in response to how you might have felt or what you went through there?
Yeah, I think, to a certain degree, yes. I think my mum in particular wanted me to toughen up, is probably the easier way to put it, but also wanted me to kind of understand that this is just words. A lot of people are saying what they're saying. It did get a little bit physical at times when I was younger, but the older I got, the more I understood about the strength that I had. And that strength there's mental strength as well as physical, but I think combined two together, I ended up kind of overcoming a lot of obstacles from that perspective.
Amazing. That's awesome. And you're saying sort of late primary to mid high school?
Yeah, so late primary to mid high school is completely spot on. So probably around 9 years old, I started to experience the bullying and probably understood it. What this means. Oh, right. Okay. This doesn't feel right. And then up until about 13, maybe 14-ish, I think that's when it continued to go on. Being this skinny, lanky, tall kid, and there's all sorts of different aspects. It all came into play, and I think I was quite shy as a child as well, surprisingly so. And that also played into a lot of things. And the other thing is I had a lot of female friends. So I generally navigate to more female friends as a child, and that maybe other folks in the class didn't like that. I don't know, but it was one of those things.
It's funny, isn't it? Thinking back, because we're the same age, and how the world has changed so much. Like completely. Back then, hanging around with girls, people did ridicule you for that.
Yeah, completely.
Whereas now it's not even a thing.
Yeah, completely. I think it's also interests that you had at the time. Like, I can't even remember the interests I had at primary school, if I'm completely honest. But I was quietly spoken. I did well in certain subjects, and quite a few. But I think it was just I was quiet and quite shy, and that was an easy target, I guess, for anybody. Overcoming it was a little bit more, for me, I think it was more in the performance side of things. So I enjoyed improvisation. I enjoyed doing kind of artsy subjects like drama. I learned to play the guitar at a young age. I went into I really enjoyed singing as a young age. I may have not been good at it, but I enjoyed it. And I think those little things sparked up confidence. And once you were able to do that in front of yourself and kind of go, hey, and then do it in front of your parents, then a slightly wider audience. And then, like I said to you earlier, my family was so close in a healthy or unhealthy way. It was the way it was. And we were able to just have little talent shows and stuff. And I think that brought a lot of confidence in us.
What, within the family?
Within the family. And that then obviously cascades through to your life as well. So, yeah.
I like what you said there, because, going back a little bit, when we talked about you aspirations and ambitions and stuff like that. And I think, there's a lot of people in life who think they have to know what they want to be when they grow up and then start that journey at the beginning. And I think we'll go into in a little while when we unpack your your very adventure-filled career, but it's a testament that you don't have to have it all worked out at a young age.
Completely agree. No, I completely agree. I know we're going to unpack this in a bit, but I think just to start with that, it's a choice as a choice. It doesn't mean it's set in stone. It's one of my mantras. You can change your mind and don't feel guilty about it. Actually own it and go and do different things and experience it. We have this life. Go and do the most you can with it and have fun at the same time. Don't kind of think that I have to do this because of this. You have to do things, don't get me wrong, but the way you do it and what you choose to do down the line is completely down to you. And the more fun you have, the better you're going to be at it.
The more you enjoy it.
Yeah,
cool.
completely.
That's good. So what do you actually do now? Comparing yourself to when you were younger to now, what do you actually do now?
So I'm in the world of digital transformation, and that it can mean a lot. And I know when I speak to peers and friends who don't work with me, but school friends or people I've gone to university with and so on and so forth, will come back and go, I have no idea what you just said, but hey, it sounds good. Great. I think I'll kind of go back in time a little bit.
Yeah, please.
So if that works. So I graduated, I went to on a grad scheme in IT. So I graduated computer science, went to do an IT grad scheme, really, really lucrative, really good, in fact. Learned a lot in those 3 years. And thereafter, I had this kind of this itch, and I was like, what is it? Why do I not enjoy this? So for a year after my grad scheme, I worked at a retailer and doing some corporate work there, and I decided I actually want to become a teacher.
Wow.
Yeah. So I ended up becoming a high school or secondary school teacher in a comprehensive in West London. In fact, it was my old school.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I went back there on something called a graduate
Did
teacher.
that just drop? How did you go from thinking, oh, this is what I'm doing, and then, oh, I'm going to be a teacher? Because it's quite a...
Yeah. I think at that point in time, I was kind of like, I really enjoyed the public speaking to a certain degree. I was quite young still, but I also felt like I wanted to give, it sounds like such a cliche, but I wanted to give back.
Amazing.
And we had some great teachers, especially in the artsy subjects. And I still remember them. They're still close to my heart till this day. And I thought, you know what? I know I can go back and do something similar. And having a degree in computer science and then having the graduate scheme under my belt, an opportunity arose. And I decided I'd take it. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go and try this out. I ended up doing teaching for almost 5 years, 4.5 years. I did about almost 3 years at my old school. And then I went into a local council and actually worked for 3 separate schools as a family coordinator, funny enough, and did a lot of work over there helping children and parents who were immigrants, basically, who came to the country at a very young age, and they're starting out and they had different things that needed to do. So the kids or the children were in the nursery, and I got to meet them, and it was a very female-driven market in the education sector, especially at nursery level. So a lot of the children there didn't have males around. So I remember when I used to walk into the rooms, I'd be bombarded with lots of children. Hey. And it's like, but it was really nice. Got to know a lot of families. And then from there, started working with a primary school and then another secondary school. At that given point...
So all ages then, from nursery,
all ages, yeah.
Primary and secondary as well?
Exactly. So my initial was just secondary, and then I moved to nursery, primary and secondary. And by the end of that stint, a lot of opportunities started to come my way because I started getting heavily into data and analytics and started understanding what that means to run a business. What does business intelligence mean? What does data mean? And how can organizations prosper? One of the areas I was focusing on was how to improve the education sector through data. And then I got approached by an organization with the product I was using, and they asked me if I wanted to be an education consultant and travel around Europe delivering education on their software. And I decided, you know what? I think I can. And I took the jump and the leap. And from there, I grew my career into data, technology transformation to digital transformation, And where I am now is I'm a digital transformation officer, working for a newly IPO'd organization based out in Israel and San Francisco. And we've got offices all around the world. And one of them is in the UK. And I'm looking after the EMEA market and the APAC region. So totally different changes from where I started to where I am today.
Absolutely. And I guess like if we sort of have a look at that transition, you know, you were given an opportunity to go into teaching.
Yeah.
You were given an opportunity to go into digital transformation. And so I guess, you know, I was going to save it for later, but it sounds like a good space to ask you, what goes through your mind? What do you think, like, what, do you go, yeah, I'll do that? Or, you know, what happens on the inside? Because
I think, so I look at everything as an opportunity, if I'm completely honest with you. So everything that comes my way, I'm kind of like, I won't say no. I say, okay, what can I do with this? How can I use this and actually learn from it? And one of the biggest parts of my growth has been learning. And I continue to learn everywhere I go. And I think diversity in what you do allows you to learn a lot of different things from a lot of talented people out there. And some may argue, well, what about the focus? I think you can get a lot of focus in a short amount of time and almost become very good at what you do. And on the back of that, when another opportunity comes, you use that old focus to actually enhance what new opportunity you're going to have to learn about. And teaching, as a prime example, helped me get into management consultancy. And I'll tell you the reason why. If I could convince 11-year-olds that the subject I was teaching, and I taught 3 subjects. I taught mathematics, economics, and computer science. And if I could convince an 11-year-old that maths was the best subject ever, going in front of a C-suite individual at any organization was pretty easy. It was less daunting, less overwhelming. I was able to walk in, have great discussions with individuals, and be able to enhance the conversation, really explain things, differentiate between different target audiences, bring the ethos to the table, and inadvertently sell. That helped me grow. And on the back of that, that foundational skill, then on top of that, really allowed me to focus in on different technical abilities. So the data part was important because I got data from day one. And it's a commodity. It's a powerful commodity. It's being used everywhere. And people are now realizing it. Going in and convincing them was the hard part. After that, it became easier. Then the challenge became, hold on, what is a digital transformation? What do you mean by that? And there are so many answers. And now I'm an evangelist for a product that helps people go through that and actually helps them enhance their transformation journey through change, behavior, and so on and so forth.
So you're looking at every opportunity as a chance to learn something new,
Completely.
and then take those skills into, you know, whatever comes up later
Completely. So everything I've learned to some capacity has always been brought into the new thing I take forward. So regardless of what I do, everything I learn is being utilized. I don't want to kind of throw it away. I want to make sure it's being stored, it's kept in a certain position. I'm then able to extract what I need to and then utilize that and gain as much traction as I possibly can in order for that to move forward.
Yeah, amazing. That's good. That's good strategy. Great strategy. Drilling into a little bit more about you and your personality, would you say you're more introverted or extroverted?
It's an interesting question because my wife would say I'm an extrovert. Right. I think a lot of my friends would probably say I'm an extrovert. But I think I'm an introvert personally. So, and the reason it comes to is, like, we talked a little bit about my childhood earlier, being bullied. I think I was an introvert. I continued to be. I then ended up having to be an extrovert in order to get my point across. And that cascaded into growing up, going to university, getting my job, family life. And I think people have a perception of being an extrovert. I think deep down inside, I know I'm an introvert.
I was going to ask you if you're a go with the flow kind of person, or do you tend to try and make things happen?
Yeah, so I'd probably sway to more the tend to make things happen. I can go with the flow.
Sure.
I think anyone can, but if you don't get up and go and pick what you need to be doing and why you need to be doing it, you may get stagnated. You may be hindered, or you might be playing stuck in the mud and trying to take that leg out, but you don't realize why. And I think for me, the kind of get up and go or really make a decision is the key to how I've moved into certain areas in my life and done what I've had to do. And I think that's been very important for me personally. And that all goes back down to the learning as well.
So I guess like learning, helps you step up in courage and go to the next level.
Completely.
That's good. What's a good compliment that's been said about you?
Man, I've only ever heard some negative. Compliment wise, let me think. It's an interesting one. I think my granddad used to say it to me, was your patience is I respect your patience, regardless of the fact I was a hyper kid and could run around anywhere. If I wanted something and I was told to wait, he would often say, with all the grandchildren that he was looking after at one given point in time, he would turn around and say, "You're really patient." And that cascaded through to my teaching. And I think on the back of that, after teaching and going into the working environment, a lot of colleagues have always said, "You're very patient. You're very good at kind of listening, taking things on board, no matter how urgent something may seem to appear." I've been able to come back with a rational way of dealing with things.
Were your parents like that as well? Your grandparents like that? Is this something you picked up, or do you think it's unique to you?
I think my dad was like that.
Right.
My dad definitely was like that. My granddad in particular. My grandma, no. My mum, no. But yeah, my granddad and my dad were quite patient individuals. My dad had a lot of different things he had to deal with growing up. He suffered from mental illness. So from that capacity, it was quite different, but he was dealing with a lot and quite strong to be able to do that and still be a patient man. So I'd probably call him the world's most patient person, in my opinion.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Wow. So we've got two questions before we get into the courage aspect of stuff. Sure. Although a lot of what you talked about today has, taking courage to even, like moving from career to career and stuff like that. It's incredible. So I really want to drill into that a little bit more. But what would you say people misunderstand about you the most?
Oh, that's a really good question and a tough one. I think a lot of people would think that I'm extremely extroverted, and I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but I think a lot of people think that, oh yeah, it's Vivek. He's the type of person who's going to go and get things done, and he's going to be the type of person who does this, does that. I think the misunderstanding on that sometimes is people think that I'm open to doing some stuff that I don't want to do. And quite often I'll have to say no, and I'm not used to saying no. That's the other problem about me. And I think that side of it, in terms of getting people to, they've almost labeled me as the party person, the guy that's going to go out and have fun constantly. And I'm like, no, I love socializing and I love getting to know people, but that doesn't mean I'm going to go and be a headbanger in a club constantly and go through all the malarkey of a night out and then the next day having the worst ever hangover. No. I generally think that I prefer pubs, and I generally prefer conversation.
I was going to ask you actually, what kind of things do you like to do to socialize?
Yeah, so sports is number one on the list, and I think
watching, participating
mainly. If I have a choice between watching or participating, it'll always be participating. And with me, it's like I enjoy playing badminton with my friends. I play football with my friends. I enjoy running when I can, and just taking up new challenges really. And I've done quite a few amounts of Tough Mudders in kind of the last 6 to 7 years. I've done some half marathons when I was a lot younger. I'm now going to be going to do a full marathon, the London Marathon.
Wow,
so
bro.
I'm looking forward to doing that. I got accepted on the ballot. So that'd be exciting. Yeah.
I'm impressed. Full marathon.
Yeah, I've got to lose a lot of weight, but hey, I'll get there.
Is there a reason why you're going for it, or is it like just a personal challenge?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. So it's something called Seva. It's a charity called Seva International, and they deal with a vast amount of projects around the world to help build infrastructure for countries that can't typically do it. I'm talking like educational establishments, schools, getting people aware of certain aspects that take place around the world. Education is probably the key part of it, and that has resonated with me a lot. The second part is a lot to do with mental illness and mental health. I think I touched on it earlier with my father. So he suffered from bipolar all of my life, most of his, and it was something that he dealt with on a regular basis. And I think on the back of that, it's the awareness campaigns that I want to build out and be able to help people. But also through Seva, really funny, I'm actually going to be driving a electric rickshaw from the east of India to the west of India over 2 weeks.
Wow.
So there's a place called Rasani that's in the east, and going all the way to the west to Kutch in Gujarat, and driving that for 2 weeks, I think it is. Wow. And that's at the end of the year, end of this year, 2023. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah. Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah. So it's interesting, but I think a lot of obviously the awareness on mental health, being able to the courage that sits behind that is absolutely prevalent to me. But more importantly, it's something that I've admired from afar and nearby with people who go through it themselves.
And the amount of just character development, willpower, courage that you need when you are tackling things up here.
Yeah.
I would say here as well. Compared to things that are physical, a lot of it's unseen,
Completely.
And then what we tend to, I don't want to use the word judge, but you hear where I'm coming from. We tend to judge people on their actions, their behaviors, what comes out on the outside, but we kind of discount, where that comes from, where that roots from on the inside.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think a lot of people, there's a lot more awareness now. I mean, I'm talking years ago, and even now there still needs to be a lot more awareness.
Agreed.
But I think when people are dealing with mental constraints, or when people have issues that they can't articulate, and they haven't got the outlet that they need, it's almost like a pressure cooker. It's sitting within that person, and then it explodes at times, and people judge. Whether it's the right thing or wrong thing to do, that's a choice on that individual. But it's about being aware that people have this, and all sorts of people. They could be the most professional individuals. There could be people fresh out of university. There could be people at school. It doesn't matter about your gender. It doesn't matter about your race. It doesn't matter about anything. That person could be going through something. So it's the awareness that comes with it, and how to focus on speaking to somebody as well. And I'm not saying you're walking on eggshells, because that's not the case.
Yeah.
I'm talking about just have an awareness about it. If you know that this exists and it's out there, when you're speaking to somebody, just have that somewhere rooted in your mind, and you'll tend to understand somebody a little bit better, in my opinion. And I could be completely wrong, because I'm not an expert.
Sure.
But I've dealt with that in family for a very long time.
Yeah. And going back to Seva, if I'm not mistaken, that translates to service, right?
It does.
And so it's a charity that provides a service
It does.
in mental health.
Well, all sorts of different things across the board. I mean, predominantly helping countries with, in the UK, it could be helping the elderly. So you'll have a lot of people through COVID, for example, who were relying on deliveries, but they weren't able to get them anymore. They were relying on an income that they weren't necessarily able to get anymore. So what we had done during that period of time was we set up a food bank in a mandir, a temple in Berkshire. And we were able to gather as much food as possible over there, cook meals, put them into containers, and send them to old people's homes, so they had hot food. That was one. The second one was also helping the NHS and the doctors who were working tirelessly during that time. So some of the doctors and the NHS staff were working 72 hours ongoing and more.
Yeah.
They didn't have time to go and get something to eat. They were literally surviving on a bar of chocolate or whatever they could get their hands on at that given point in time. So we were giving them meals on a regular basis. So that was one side of it. The other side was through Seva. It's like, for example, there was a church that needed refurbing. So we went into the church, we refurbed the entire church. We did their gardening, we cleaned their garden. And this was in the midst of summer, last summer, when it was the hottest summer we've had in years, standing out there, digging up the gardens and relaying grass on there, taking the weeds out, putting up new fences, all sorts of different things like that. And the amount of stuff you see that's been thrown into churchyards is unbelievable. So that was another side of it. So we worked on that. And then there's a completely different side. Now imagine you've got folks who are in old folks' homes and they don't have visitors. They don't have anybody who comes to see them. Their family have either just kind of not in the same vicinity anymore, or have just decided they don't want to. It might be hard for them. Whatever the reason is, those people are alone. So what Seva, or what we've done, is being able to go there and have conversations, meet them, sit down with them. Hey, how are you? What do you do? And bring younger children with us as well. And let me tell you something. When you put an old person and a young person together, the stories, but also the happiness that comes out from that person is unexplainable. Unless you're there and you see it.
It's incredible. I've seen it. It's incredible. And it doesn't kind of logically make sense in some way, because you're like, oh, the child's going to get bored. Like, what they got to do?
Completely.
But the connection, the contrast between those two ages is a beautiful thing,
And it's just unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That sounds amazing. You mentioned the mandir there. Is that like? Can you give us a little, for people who don't know what that is? And
So I'm a Hindu. I'm a practicing Hindu. It's a way of life for me. It means being a good person. And I know that sounds quite vague and generic, but it's about helping your community, helping people around you. There's so many. There's a word called sanskar. Sanskar means typically it means how you've been brought up, what your discipline is, and how you can surpass that knowledge to other people around you. And I think, from my perspective, sanskar is really important because it then helps drive community spirit. It helps drive collective understanding of people around you. It helps understand what people are going through, and therefore it helps you give back, and openly give back to the community. And community isn't just like other Hindus or Sikhs or Christians or Muslims or anything like that. It's basically the whole world. That's what a community is. And I believe wherever you are and whoever you're around at that given point in time is giving the positive energy and giving people the understanding that, we should be good. This is how we should be good together.
Yeah. What comes to mind when you think of courage? What kind of things pop up for you?
First is my dad.
Your dad.
Yeah. I'd probably say other words or other things that pop up into mind is focus. I'd say strength is a big part of courage. And I'd say facing fears. Understanding what your fears are, because sometimes you just don't even know. Yeah. But understanding your fears and facing them. And opportunity is courage. Opportunity.
Okay, so let's break some of those down. You started off with your dad.
Yeah.
I know you lost your dad recently. Yeah. He was a courageous person in your life. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So my dad was this amazingly gentle person. He was 71 when he passed away, but he lived with depression all his life. So he had mental illness literally from childhood. Got married in the 70s. I was born in the late 70s. My brother in the mid 80s. And we grew up with the most gentle human being you can possibly imagine. It was really hard for my father to work or be around people socially, yet he did. It was really hard for him to be around family at times, yet he was. It was really hard for him to be able to articulate himself, but he always did. So what I mean by that is that my dad had this capacity or this ability to continue to go on. He never gave up, regardless of how many things he was going through. And so I actually, funny enough, said this on his eulogy at this funeral. Imagine imagine having a conversation with somebody, and you're one-on-one, like you and I are right now. We're having a conversation. We're focused on each other. We're talking about aspects. You're asking me a question. I'm answering it. We're going back and forth. My father couldn't do that. But if you saw him on camera, you think he could do it perfectly. And the reason why is he had about 1,000 voices talking to him at the exact same time.
Right.
And he had that most of his life, if not all. But he still managed to get through it. So on the outside, when people saw him, at some stages, people thought he was an extrovert. At some stages, people saw him and thought, wow, like this guy's doing this, he's pretty cool. But he just managed to get through it. On the inside, though, what he was dealing with was epic. It was massive. It was huge. And, years go by and, my brother, my mother and myself specifically, and again, my dad's siblings as well, would have seen all of this with them growing up with it and then us growing up with it and then seeing what that was like internally and what he had to deal with on a regular basis. Right. And then later in life, he got Parkinson's. And then the mixture of Parkinson's and mental health is the worst combination you can possibly imagine. But courage was him through and through. He would fall because of Parkinson's, be right back up again. And he would continue. He would still want to dress amazingly well. He'd have a fantastic dress sense on him, and he'd still want to go out and showcase, who he is or who he was as a person. And for me, that was courage. And he had this firm politeness about him. Whoever met him was like, he's always really calm, really, and you would never think that was somebody with bipolar and somebody who's dealing with what he's been dealt with. And, he was just constantly calm and just very rational, pragmatic, down to earth.
And he's quite a respected member of the community from what you've told me before.
Yeah, completely. Well. Completely. He was also part of the Save Us stuff that we did earlier on. But people generally knew him in the community, obviously because of my granddad too. And there was a vast amount of that kind of influence there as well. But my dad just, generally was just a very nice man, a nice human being. Yeah.
Amazing. So you had, that great example of, if you get knocked down, get back up again.
It's a bit rocky, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, yeah. That's definitely our generation, our era, isn't it?
Yeah.
But to have that in your house all the time, to see that would have had an impact, I would imagine, on.
I mean, and it works both ways. It's like my mum as well. I mean, she's an exceptionally strong human being. Obviously, looked after my father for a while, for a very long time. Had her own demons to deal with as well, but was very strong and has always been courageous. Almost, kind of going out and earning as a single mother at that point in time, trying to get the income in for the family and support us and make sure that we had what we needed. And she's always done that, always has, and has been a very strong person from that perspective. Yeah, and that obviously had a massive influence on myself and my brother, I'd say, and we both kind of took that away, and that's helped us too.
Yeah, incredible. You also mentioned, you see courage as something that, what came to mind, sorry, you said about facing fears.
Yeah.
And so, can you think of an example in your life where you've had to really dig deep and face something in front of you? What could someone listening potentially?
I mean, I could go through quite a few examples. The bullying that I went through, obviously, but I think the most recent part is loss.
Right.
And I think that facing your fears, I mean, that's a huge fear. I think anyone who we're all going to lose somebody in our lives at some stage or another. I've lost friends. I've lost family members. One of the biggest fears was losing my dad. And when he went, I think, you're scared because you're kind of like, oh, what? He's not here anymore. What happens next? I think facing fears is the only way you can deal with anything. If you hold it in, or you kind of turn the mirror the other way around so you're seeing the back of the mirror and not being able to see anything, you're just basically pushing things deep down inside, and you're not able to deal with it. The prime example with when my father passing away was what's next? Like, how do we as a family deal with this? How do I step up? And more importantly, how do I support the people around me? And beyond that, how do I deal with it? And I think that came a lot later for me. And it was only recently, it was last year, April, that he passed away. So it's not even been a year yet. But that dealing with that side of things and actually being able to stand up to it and understanding what needs to happen next in that ever so life journey that you take is really important. and everyone takes it so differently. It was emotional.
Yeah.
It still is, and it still can be. But it's also taking everything that you learn from your time with that person. So my message to anyone is, if you do lose somebody in your life, or you are going through that, you're not alone, number one. Number two, speak to the people around you, speak to your family members. Number three, don't feel like it's the end. There's so much that you've had, no matter how much time with that person, that you can take away and use for yourself or impact other people around you. So there's lots of different ways of dealing with it. And mine is face it.
Yeah. I think, it's been said that the opposite of faith is fear.
Yeah.
And so if you live in the fear, you kind of, you start to grow hopelessness. Whereas if you step into your faith,
completely.
And when I say faith, I mean, in terms of stepping into hope that there is a better tomorrow.
I completely agree with that. I completely agree with that.
Your career has been sort of a fascinating journey. I know we touched on it earlier on.
Yeah.
What are there sort of significant moments that you can remember that helped you to build the courage to step up and take it to the next level?
Yeah, no, definitely. So I was on a grad scheme, a good trajectory to a very good, formidable and lucrative career ahead of me in IT and technology. And I decided I just wasn't happy, and I had to listen to my head and my heart at that time. And I think when I actually went into perspective and thought, well, what do I want to do? I wanted to give back. Whatever it was, I wanted to go back and kind of go to individuals that could learn something from my experiences, even though it was so early in my career. I just thought, what can I do? And teaching was the point and protocol that came to mind. I think the hardest part was that jump. It's scary. It's really scary. You've got this career, you've got this new salary that you've got. You've just come out of university. A really good salary that you get on a grad scheme. You're kind of like, oh yeah, this is the start of everything.
And I suppose we're taught that, like growing up, that's it. Yeah. Once you've done your degree or whatever it is you're doing, and then you jump into your job, you've made it. Like that's it.
Completely. And you're spot on. I think the pressure you have from family, community, friends, that are like, yeah, I mean, this is what you're doing. This is what it was about. You went to university. And this is what's happening. And I remember I made my mind up. I hadn't made, I'd made the decision I wanted to do it, but I didn't know when is probably the answer I'd give there. And I just met my wife, actually, who's my wife now, during that period of time. And I remember dating her and saying, and she asked, what do I do? So it's like a first date. And I said, well, I've done this and I'm about to step into teaching. She said, that's amazing. And I think that was the switch I needed. It was a bit of a, hey, look, you're going to go into teaching. That's credible. That's amazing. Oh, you've got my support. And that's what I wanted to hear. And I think a lot of folks prior to that, who are still good friends of mine, don't get me wrong, and family members, whoever it was, oh, you want to be a teacher? I mean, you've just done your degree in this and you're going to, what are you going to be a teacher for? And I think I always felt a bit like, oh, do I do it? And I had to question it. That leap was scary, but the affirmation from at the time was somebody I just met, was a lot for me, and it meant a lot. It meant, look, go and do it. And thereafter, I actually decided I'm not going to listen to everything around me and people giving their opinions. And don't get me wrong, I'm happy to hear opinions. Whether or not it actively has an impact on that is different. I think from that point onwards, I was a bit like, no, I think I know what I'm doing. I need to make this decision. Went into teaching. Fantastic profession, by the way. One of the best jobs I've ever had. And the inadvertent question afterwards is, why'd you leave? It's quite often that I get. I can get into that in a moment, but I think being a teacher, learning about children is is amazing. But I think for me, the most important thing was I'd already been in industry. Being in industry and coming in as a teacher gave a different perspective. It allowed me to showcase a different part of what it is like to grow and do things differently and approach things differently. And personally, that's what it felt like at that time. And don't get me wrong, I was still early in my career.
Sure.
Other folks that I met, the bureaucracy was what really dwindled it for me and really made it quite difficult to want to continue with it. Number one, and it's a big thing, and it's a low paying job. It doesn't pay well. A lot of folks,
Which is probably why people were saying to you, hang on, wait, you've got a really good career. Why are you going into teaching?
Exactly. I mean, I took a third of my salary when I became a teacher. That was getting as a graduate on a grad scheme. So you can imagine the drop financially. But the output and what you can gain afterwards is amazing. But it is... I was on a fast track GTP graduate teacher position. So I moved quite fast up the ranks. It was great to be in that position at a very young age. But one of the key things about it is a lot of folks in teaching have done one simple thing. They went to school, they went to college, they went to university, they went back to school to teach, and then they continued that cycle. I don't mean this in any disrespect, because some of the most amazing teachers out there have done that. Some of the people who have had the largest impact on my life have done that. But a lot of the folks who are dealing with other teachers almost dealt with them as though they were students, and almost dealt with them as though they were those children at that age bracket,
right?
Which was not an easy way to kind of grow and really master that career. I felt I got a lot of accolade being a teacher from my peers, but more importantly, the children. And I felt like even to this day, I'm in central London or I'm in work and somebody might have joined the organisation, sir. And it's an amazing experience. But I think facing that jump and that kind of big leap to go into teaching, but thereafter going back and making the jump again into something else, and again doing that continuously down the career.
It's about 5 years, did you say?
About 4.5.
4.5, 5 years of teaching. Okay, and then jumping back. And I guess it's you touched on or you said from IT to teaching.
Yeah.
There were voices.
Yeah.
Be it people close to you, community, whatever, and you went against the grain.
Yeah.
And so here now, I'm not sure if that happened again or if it was just you learning from the last time, saying, actually, I want to.
No, I think there's probably more support to go back.
Yeah.
I think the voices this time were coming from my peers as teachers, saying, "Oh, we don't want to lose you as a teacher.
Right.
We think you're great, in the education sector." So I kind of did the leap. So I did a gradual leap. So I still was in education, but in corporate education.
Right.
And then became a regional head for education for a software company. And thereafter, I was self-employed and worked in several very large organizations as a self-employed contractor, and then went into management consulting.
And what? Sorry,
yeah.
I know people listening would be thinking about the courage aspect of that. So you're, you jumped out of that, you've gone back into that world, albeit within education aspect, and then you know, in a really blasé way, really cool, chilled out way, say, then I became self-employed. What was that like? What was the jump to go from there to then go, I'm going to work for myself?
I think again, it's knowledge. Knowledge is power. It's key. And I think I learned a lot about the industry that I went into, data, analytics, tech, and I learned a vast amount. And being an educator in that field, you learn so much more. Like, you've got to teach these professionals around the world about how to be a master in that area and be an SME, a subject matter expert. So I think once it got to a remit, I was like, hold on a second, I'm teaching subject matter experts how to be subject matter experts in this arena. I could do this. And I weighed it up and I was like, hold on, this is, number one, it's you end up meeting a lot of new people around the world. You're actually in the mix of implementation, so building something from scratch and really owning it. And then the third, I think the really important part is collaboration. You're meeting so many vast teams that you have to work with on a continuous basis that you kind of go, oh my gosh, I'm getting so much perspective. Before it was like education, or just tech. Now it's all of this combined together. So an ecosystem. So it became a no-brainer. And I know it sounds really easy, like you said, to just go, oh yeah, I'm going to become again, it was a leap. It was, I had to face the fear, and I was like, do I do this? I have to go to company's house. I have to open my own business up. I have to do, then I have to make sure I'm earning. Then I have to make sure I can provide. And so on and so forth. You've got a mortgage. You've got a wife. You've got all sorts of different things. My wife was working full time. She was amazing support, fantastic at what she was doing. And she was always supportive, whatever I wanted to do. And I think that was also important. Really important was the fact that she was supportive. So on the back of that, I was just able to have that growth aspect where I was going, okay, let me do something different. Then when I got to a certain point, I got an offer to be a management consultant and head up a European remit in data. And again, I was contracting. I was actually working at a music company at the time. Really, really enjoyed it there. And then I could have been there for a long time as a contractor, quite easily made the money I was making, but I decided to take the leap. Went into permanent position, took less money to get into the permanent position again. And the reason behind that was there was an ethos behind it that was allowing me to build an academy.
Right.
And the academy was with children coming out of university, not children anymore, young adults coming out of university.
Isn't it weird that we refer to them as children now? Like we're that age now.
Completely. The white beards and all here. And they were coming out, and you had to kind of teach them about life. You had to teach them about technology. You had to teach them about what their career means for them and how they're going to grow. Funny enough, so many of these individuals that were there have followed me in different career paths and been working for me or with me in different other jobs that I've moved into. So after management consulting, I continued on. I just continued doing the same kind of thing where I wanted to teach people and coach people, and that became my hidden strength. I think it was the going, and it relates all the way back to teaching again. So there's all the parts that I learned from teaching and from the Seva stuff that I've done in the charities, combining them together and actually putting it into my career. And my career just prospered because of that. And don't get me wrong, it was hard work as well. I wasn't just sat there going, oh, it's all going to come to me now. And but it was facing your fears, making sure you take that next step. And for anybody here, my suggestion would be, when you are making that decision or you are thinking about doing something new, my personal opinion is do it. Think about why you've chosen to even have that thought in your mind in the first place, and look at it as an opportunity. And then everything thereafter becomes something that you can take with you to other remits in your career. And that's exactly what I've done all the way through. And I've become, you're going into C-suite now is just great. It's a lot of responsibility, but I can deal with pressure. I can deal with all those different commodities that come with it.
And the pressure of 30 children in a classroom, or however many there were, probably gave you a bit more thick skin than if you didn't have that. Completely. Teaching 30 children every hour and 30 different children every hour for a day, and that's your life. I'll tell you what's harder than that though is twins. No joke. No, they're great. But no, it's completely that. It's completely. Isn't it interesting that that strong decision that you had to make to go from going back into your early career, that graduate scheme, etc. Going from that place of comfort, if I can say that, to then jumping to teaching, has had the most significant impact on your life moving forward. Because from your words, everything is coming out of that teaching heart that you have, that teaching experience that you had.
I think you nailed it. You just nailed it by saying that. I think you touched on something else there as well about comfort. So this is me personally, and this doesn't mean that everyone else is the same, but as soon as I get comfortable, I feel like I need to do something else.
Right.
And that's me, and it might be a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. But me personally, it's great being comfortable, don't get me wrong. And a lot of people I'm now settled, I'm doing my thing, I'm relaxing. I've got this thing where I need to be challenged constantly, and I need to be able to grow. And that for me equates to growth. So whenever I'm feeling comfortable in something and it becomes a bit too easy, I'm like, hold on a second. I'm not using my brain.
I'm not growing.
Yeah. I'm not learning. I'm not able to cascade what I have learned. This feels a little bit too odd. So on the back of that, what generally happens is opportunities then coincidentally, you can call it that, come my way, and I look at them, and it could be an opportunity in the same organization I'm working for. It could be an opportunity like being able to apply for the London Marathon and getting in. It could be the rickshaw challenge I mentioned earlier. It could be any of those things. But career-wise and courageousness, the courage that you get from anything in life is, my opinion is, think outside of your comfort zone. Think about what you could learn from this and what you could be giving to the people around you. And it's a no-brainer.
It's brilliant. I think one of the first guests on this show, a guy called Sam Phillips, he was talking about not plateauing, like getting to a place where you're constantly actioning courage, and you can't action courage if you're in a comfort place. Like, there's no need for courage then, right?
That's a great way of putting it. And I think
it lines up with what you're saying.
Completely aligned with that.
Amazing. Cool. I wanted to ask you, a bit of a fun question, if there was a movie, a book, a piece of music, a bit of art that inspired you to be, or inspires you to be more courageous in life?
Wow. Okay. There are so many.
There's loads in there.
There's so many.
So I'm not going to ask you your favorite, because I think that's a really hard question, but if something comes to mind.
I think so this is going to sound like a cliche, but the Shawshank Redemption, the movie, it's just a great movie because, it's about facing your fears there. There's a lot of courage aspects that relate to that movie, but it's about how do you make the worst situation in your life turn into something that's great later down the line. So no matter how low you are, and no matter how you feel like you're at the bottom of the pile, there is always a way to get out of it, no matter what you think. And I mean, that film probably resonates with a lot of individuals, and why it's such a popular movie, and why people have rated it as like one of the highest, the favorite movies of all time. I think it's because of resonation. You kind of look at it and you go, that person he's not supposed to be in jail, or is he there? And other people are, but they're good people, and they're moving themselves around, and and so on and so forth. No matter what is coming their way, they've got so much impact within the prison cell. They're getting abused left, right, and center. There's so many things happening to them, but on the back of it, they still see light. At the end of that tunnel, they come out of it, they exceed, they do something well. And I think that's something that resonates with all humans. No matter where they are, they're looking to see, okay, can I get there? Let me try. And I think that for me is probably why I like that movie.
It makes a lot of sense, based on what we've been talking about today in terms of your career and stuff. Like, whatever comes at you, you're looking at it as here's an opportunity. Here's an opportunity. What can I do with this? Great movie by the way.
Yeah, it is.
Is there anyone that comes to mind? I know you spoke about your dad earlier on. You mentioned your granddad as well. The strength of the courage and strength of your mum as well. Yeah. Are there people outside of the family unit that come to mind when you think about courage?
Yeah. There's a lot of friends. There's the people who go through things, and I won't go into who they are, but there are friends that go through things on a regular basis. I think the friends that talk about things openly, that are able to kind of really open up their feelings on a regular basis, are the ones that I look up to. They're the ones that I look to for strength and guidance, and there are lots of friends like that out there that I'd rely on. I think in the world, that the charity work I'm involved in, there are people over there that have specifically been a massive impact to me in my life. They've had a huge impact in the way I am as a person. What that means in terms of charity, but what that means as a human being as well, being really strong. And I won't mention names here, but there are people that have done that and been really, really impactful to me personally.
You're welcome to, if you want to make someone smile.
So from a family perspective, my wife's been a massive impact for me in that perspective. She's had a quite a unique life as well, but generally just a pragmatic individual that's very focused on growth, but also just a person that has a lot of empathy about her as well in terms of life. I think she's probably one of the most pragmatic people I've met. But then other people outside it,
can I just say, spouses, support your spouse. That's good. That's a good little thing.
Yeah,
good little message.
Completely.
Support your spouse.
Yeah, no, completely. Yeah. She's been there, and hopefully I've supported her as well. And then I think other people, there's an individual called Kabul Shah. He's a very good friend of mine that I've grown up with. He's just been a solid rock. And I might be a time to say this now, but there's a guy called Rix Banga that I've known.
I know that guy.
Yeah, I know that guy too. Been a big impact on my life as well. There are loads, and there's one in particular who's a little bit older than me, Sanjay Videra. Fantastic individual, and just being like an older brother to me. And just being there no matter what. And then there's lots of family members as well. Sure. But yeah, and I mean, yeah, it's just, and then more recently, a guy called Dr. Amit Sra. Just the tenacity of this individual is unbelievable. And I thought I was courageous in certain things that I did in my life, but working with this individual now on personal pursuits and businesses, one of the most inspiring individuals I've met.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. A lot of people.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're going to say something.
No, and I think that to your point, I'm sure you probably say the same thing. Because of the way I am and all the changes I've made and all the different things, they've not just come from one person. It has to be from so many individuals.
And I think that's a really important message, that we're designed to work in community, aren't we?
Completely.
As human beings.
Completely.
You know, that you can't be an island. You're not going to get very far.
Yeah.
Or you could get far, but you're not going to get as far as you can.
And again, it's every single person that you're with to a certain degree has some impact on you, right? Who you meet, who you're interacting with on a daily basis, they all have some, and it goes again to what I was saying earlier about that ripple effect. You're not just giving a ripple effect, you're receiving that ripple effect as well. So there's a lot of different people that impact you positively too.
So if you could sum up everything that we've talked about today, what would be key takeaways you'd like people to sort of think about?
Take a chance.
Take a chance.
Yeah, take a chance. Opportunity is your friend. Okay, don't knock it, because at some point down the line you'll regret it. If something comes your way that you can see would be good, no matter how small it is or how large it is, take it, own it. And you will go far with it. If you take it and you do it half-heartedly and you don't really focus on it, you're not going to succeed in it. But the minute you own it and it's yours, and it's not yours forever, but it's yours there and then, take the most you can from it and then use that to help you in the other pursuits that you take in life as well. And I think one final point that I'd love folks to take away is, no matter what you're going through in your life, no matter how bad it might look at that given point in time, you will always be able to extract something positive from there and take it with you to something that has immense impact, not just on you, but other people around you as well in life. So wherever you're feeling low, you're only going to come out of that really, really well at the end of it.
Amazing. Oh, that's really good. That's really strong. Thanks, Viv. Really appreciate you coming down today. Is there a place that people can find you online if they wanted to connect with you?
Yeah, sure.
Where's a good place?
LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably like the number one place at the moment that you can find me. There are business pursuits that I talked about. Dr. Amit Sra, both he and I are going out and doing at the moment. One is in esports and helping children from the ages of 7 to 15 get onto out of their social blanket out into the open, so they meet new people in built up centers that have got coaching facilities and professionals from around the world that talk about nutrition, health, career, networking, and so on and so forth, and even provide sponsorships to go to university. So something new and different, but esports.
Oh, great. We'll stick your LinkedIn thing down the bottom in the description, and then people can find out a bit about that as you develop and put that out there.
Thank you.
Incredible. We are going to cover some other topics in upcoming podcasts.
Brilliant.
We're going to look at marriage and relationships, look at parenting, and a couple of other exciting things as well. Would you be up for coming back and talking to us?
Most certainly. That would be amazing. Thank you. Thanks for having me today as well.
Oh, it's been awesome having you, and it's really good to hear, especially as you have such a multidisciplinary type career.
Thanks.
And all the stuff that you're doing, with CFI and the service and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. So glad you were able to come and join us today.
Cheers. Thanks, Rix.
Really appreciate that.
I appreciate that.
I hope you guys got something from that. For those of you listening, and whatever you're doing in life, whatever you're facing, whatever opportunities come your way, go in courage. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that video. Hope you got something out of that. And if you did, why not let us know in the comments? Also, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel and you'll stay up to date with all things Go in Courage. I'll see you next time.